For tuning in today, folks.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, awesome. I guess are we ready to start here?
Yeah, ready to go.
All right. Well, thank you guys all for joining us here for our next installation of Bytes at the Beat. Apologize for some of the technical difficulties we were having, but my name's Kevin Cummings and I'm staff writer here at NTX Inno. If you've never joined us for one of these before, Bytes at the Beat are short one-on-one virtual conversations with local founders, investors, stakeholders, and thought leaders, modeled after our core newsletter, The Beat. Bytes are meant to be conversational, fun looks at the people, companies, and ideas driving the local ecosystem. Today, as you probably know, we're sitting down with James Jang, founder and CEO at Optab, and he's also one of the leads bringing the Republic Dallas here to our city. So we'll be talking a little bit about his startup's technology, as well as the launch of Republic City's platform here in Dallas. Just a reminder, if you guys are joining us, you're on mute. So if you do have any questions that come up during the conversation, just go ahead and drop those in the question box, and we'll try our best to answer as many of those as possible when we get to the end. If anyone is unfamiliar with NTX Inno and what we do, Inno is part of a growing network of sites. We're currently in 14 markets, and we're committed to covering and connecting the local technology, startups, growth, and innovation. NTX Inno has been covering the DFW scene since August 2019. Through our daily email newsletter, stories, quarterly events, which are virtual for right now, directories, data, and more. NTX Inno is building a portal for the region's startup and tech communities. So check us out at ntxinno.com to see what we're all about and sign up for the Beat. It's really the best way to stay plugged into everything that's impacting the local innovation economy. You'll get the local tech and startup news you need, analysis you won't find anywhere else, info on upcoming events and cool job openings, and a lot more. So without further ado, let me kick it over to James to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about your company.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. A little bit about me. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and went to SMU for college. Graduated from SMU and went into a career in management consulting. And so I did management consulting for a couple of years there, for going on almost 4 years, and decided to start my journey as an entrepreneur. And that's kind of what led me to Optab. I came across an interesting pain point during my time in consulting across a lot of different industries. And it was just that B2B sales just weren't transparent. There wasn't a lot of data out there to make it possible for the buyers to be able to transparently see what other buyers were buying the same supply for.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of took that problem and started with restaurants in the sense of making it possible for restaurants to see what other restaurants were paying for the same food supplies. So that one, they would just have that information. See, am I getting a good price here? Am I paying too much for chicken? Or if they're getting a good deal, then that's great for them. But two, just being able to stay up to date and having that data just on a platform very similar to Glassdoor, where you would go and see other people's salaries. So just making it possible for the restaurant industry to do the same thing.
Yeah, kind of getting that comparative view. And so I guess, like, when did you guys launch officially?
It's hard to say. So while I was working my job in consulting, I was working on this idea and just kind of testing it and making sure that this was worth leaving a full-time job for.
Yeah, taking that leap into being a full-time entrepreneur.
But it was really in August that I kind of went full speed ahead with just running after this idea and making it become more of a reality. I met my co-founder 2 months after that, and we just started to build the platform out. So I'm the business guy and he's a technical guy.
Yeah, I guess one of the reasons I was asking is because, obviously we've got this pandemic thing going on. And so, what is it like, you basically launching a company in the middle of a pandemic and then focusing on an industry that has, been hit pretty hard by the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been interesting. In some ways, it's actually it's provided a lot more time for me. When I was in consulting, I was having to travel a lot, but then the pandemic hit and that kind of shut down travel. So it gave me a lot more time to kind of focus on this idea as well outside of work. And so I was able to really just make sure that my idea was thought through, that this concept was proper, gave me a lot more time to network. And then just with that extra time, you're you're exactly right. The restaurant industry was hit pretty hard. But because it was hit so hard, they are an industry that wants to be able to cut their costs even more so now. And so from my perspective, it's Optab is in a great situation in that sense now that restaurants really do care. They cared before because their margins are so small, but they care even more so now about saving an extra dollar here or two based off their food supplies that they're buying a ton of.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I was curious, like if you've seen kind of more interest in it now because of like people trying to, cut costs wherever they can.
Yeah, absolutely. I was even talking to a couple of restaurants over in LA that somehow found out about Optab and reached out to me, and they were like, "Hey, like, when is this coming to LA?" And it was just funny because LA has been hit really hard as well because restaurants in Dallas, I mean, they were hit hard, but they were able to open back up. But
I think
LA,
I hadn't seen some of them pretty open.
yeah, some of them are definitely pretty open. But yeah, there are definitely cities like LA and New York that are just still just so beaten down, and something like this would be so great for them to be able to save some money.
Yeah, and I guess follow up to that, when are you guys going to LA?
We want to be able to focus on Dallas and really make sure that our product is working great for the Dallas market first. But I think as soon as our proof of concept is over, we want to be able to launch in major cities like LA and New York as well.
Yeah, and I guess like on a more serious note, besides, people looking to kind of save money where they can, I guess, are there any other kind of trends coming out of the pandemic that you kind of see Optab positioned for, or kind of just affecting the way y'all operate?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one, just internally, the remote work aspect of it is great. My co-founder is over in Nashville, and so it's just provided like we were both used to working remotely beforehand just because of the pandemic, and so it's just provided a bit more of an efficient way for us to work together now. When we start to raise funding, we'll have access to great candidates, great talent all across the US, right? And that might even help in the sense of me being based in Dallas, he's based in Nashville. We have access to one, different investors, and two, different types of clients that we can meet up with. Um, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess kind of you made a perfect segue here. So, speaking of raising funds and stuff, part of the other thing I wanted to talk about was the launch of Republic Cities here in Dallas. So you're talking about the VC route. I haven't seen Optab up on Republic Dallas. So I guess tell us just, I mean, kind of explain a little bit about what it is and, why kind of startups on there should be thinking about crowdfunding as a potential option.
Absolutely. So Republic Cities Dallas, it's really just the Republic platform as a whole that's making it possible for startups such as myself to be able to not only just get money from institutional investors, but regular people like you and me who want to invest as little as what, like $100. So it makes it possible for people like us to be involved in startup deals. And that's just exciting deals to be a part of. On the other hand, on the startup side, it's a great way to raise capital because, oftentimes when you're going to different VCs, they might take a large percentage of your company, and it almost feels like you're reporting to them in a sense. And that's great from an accountability level. But when you're able to kind of raise funds from a lot of different people, yes, they're still on the cap table, but it's just not as much pressure to kind of report to them. It really feels like you get to kind of drive those decisions yourself. So that's just one perk, but also just for a lot of startups too that have trouble raising money, it's a great way to kind of reach out outside of that network and find some capital that you wouldn't find elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of startups, especially when you're in that really early stage, kind of struggle to find that, angel investment or seed funding that kind of goes with it.
Mhm.
And I mean, obviously, there's other types of crowdfunding platforms. I could go out and start my own GoFundMe for, whatever startup idea I guess I have. But I guess like, what makes kind of Republic different? I guess like, how do you kind of vet, the companies
Yeah.
that are placed on there?
Yeah, absolutely. And so Republic does its own due diligence for our users on our platform. And so we have a due diligence team that actually goes in and sees, okay, is this startup actually worth the valuation that they're raising for? And two, do they see enough traction and do they believe in the team enough to put it onto a platform and give its stamp of approval to be able to tell its users, hey, you guys should invest in this. This is a great startup. It's got a lot of potential. I think with all startups, when you invest in it, it's pretty risky, but
Right.
just knowing that, professionals have vetted this startup and said, hey, we're willing to put it up on our platform, give our stamp of approval. That should at least take one sigh of concern out of your hands. And two, the model with Republic Cities is actually what I believe is the biggest differentiator. You've seen a lot of these other crowdfunding sources, but Republic Cities is unique in the sense that it's really empowering the community. So when I was brought onto the team, I was brought on just mainly because they wanted to be able to reach the Dallas network and be able to partner with uh, organizations in Dallas like SMU, the DEC, just heavily entrepreneurship focused communities where they knew people want access to be able to invest in different entrepreneurs and not even just invest in them, but also help them out throughout their journey. And be able to connect them to other people that would help them out, because getting funding is really just the tip of the iceberg. After that, it's, you have to execute. And to do that, you need a good network of people around you and that'll support you.
Right. There's a lot of work that goes in before you get to send off that celebratory press release about your funding round or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
like, from my understanding, Republic Cities is relatively like new to the kind of the Republic platform. So I guess like why Dallas as kind of one of the first rollouts of that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely growing as a hub. They reached out to a lot of different cities, and Dallas in particular is one that they want to focus on just because of the growing entrepreneurship hub. I mean, I think Dallas and Austin were recently ranked within like the top 5 of growing cities of entrepreneurship. The next Silicon Valley's is set to be here in Texas.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a list like every week about some city is in the top for work from home, or it's like tech employees, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a firm believer that Dallas will be one of the next big hubs for entrepreneurship. And it's great to be able to have a platform like Republic come in and believe in that mission too and help drive these communities to come together and rally around the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and kind of just keeping it on crowdfunding for a second. I know the SEC is kind of working on changes to rules about crowdfunding investments. I guess like, what are some of the things kind of that you guys are looking at, and I guess like, how will that affect companies that are on the platform?
Yeah, so one recent change, I mean, recent as of a couple months ago,
Mhm.
uh, before you were only able to raise up to $1 million on Republic, but now that cap has been taken up to 5 million, and so that just gives a lot of potential to different startups that need more than just $1 million to raise through crowdfunding. I mean, that's 5x as much.
Yeah, that kind of changes things a little bit. And I guess like, is there a minimum like investment on the platform?
I believe it's $100, but I would have to double check on that.
Yeah, and I think the last time I checked the website, I guess I should have had it pulled up next to me. There was about 4 companies that were listed on there. I guess like, have there been any kind of recent successes or like anything to kind of share since the launch of it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Republic as a whole, there have been a lot of different successes. I think Republic City's Dallas, as we've recently launched, we've launched, I believe, 3 or 4 campaigns like what you're talking about. One startup that we found via the launch day that they pitched to the people that were at the event. Recently, I mean, I believe they raised up to 175K, something like that, which is really good traction within the first like month or so, right?
Mhm.
That's a good amount of money.
I wouldn't complain about getting that much money in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess kind of like, what are kind of the future plans for Republic Cities Dallas here? I mean, like we are saying, there's 4 right now. I guess like, what do you kind of hope this looks like in, a year from now or even 5 years from now?
Yeah, I believe, I mean, 5 years from now, that's a long journey, but I can tell you a year from now, it looks like our communities have been rallied. A lot of members of these different communities in Dallas have signed up to be on the Republic Cities platform. They're consistently going on there to look at new deals and see if they want to invest. We're constantly getting more and more startups within the Dallas ecosystem vetted and put onto the platform. Maybe Optab will be one of them. But yeah, it's an exciting time for Republic to kind of just get its feet wet at this point and onboard a few of these Dallas startups. And then as more and more successes occur, we'll get more and more users and more startups onto the platform.
Yeah, I mean, you're giving me this perfect segue because I wanted to go back to kind of talking a little bit about Optab. I mean, if you can, like you were talking about how, you look at kind of the prices that the restaurants and stuff are getting from suppliers. I guess like walk me through a little bit about kind of how that technology works.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be honest. I mean, the suppliers, like food distributors like Cisco, Benny Keith, they don't exactly want this data out there, right?
I was wondering if they kind of hate you a little bit.
Yeah, they, like that's why they have these salespeople to negotiate prices with these restaurants, so that they can get a better deal on their end. But the way that we're going about crowdsourcing this is kind of just like Republic is crowdsourcing funds. We're crowdsourcing this data. And so we start with the individual restaurants and we tell them, hey, just like what Glassdoor does, and you have to enter in your own salary, give us your invoice. All you have to do is send it to us, just shoot it in an email, and we'll do the data entry. We'll do all that. And we'll analyze that data and put it into a nice, pretty report for you to kind of look at and be able to see exactly where your main pain points are.
Yeah, and so I guess like when you have a like client coming to you, is it kind of like a one-off transaction? Is it kind of like a subscription? I guess like how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so it's a subscription model, and the restaurants pay like a small $10 a month SaaS fee. And eventually we want to be able to onboard the distributors as well. And so what we call the tipping point of 500 restaurants, we believe that at that point, distributors will have to gain access to our platform as well, because they want access to be able to, one, advertise on our platform, and two, gain access to these buyers that they might not have access to originally, and be able to just have another point of contact to be able to sell into it.
Yeah, I was kind of curious how it was going to work, kind of bringing them in as well. Yeah, I mean, like, as you said, they're not necessarily the biggest fans of you guys at the moment.
Yeah, they wouldn't be the biggest fans, but it's interesting. One of our advisors, he used to be an executive at the company that owns like the Chili's, and it's called Brinker International, but they own Chili's, Maggiano's, like all those big chains. And
One you can get a gift card for all of them for.
yeah, exactly. But he was the one that was actually that when I first started, I got advice from him, and I was like, hey, like, how can we incentivize these suppliers to be on there? And he was like, well, they have to be on there. These are the suppliers are the ones that need access to these buyers. Just because they don't like what you guys are doing doesn't mean that they're not going to get onto it. They need access to the buyers, and they're not going to pass up another opportunity to sell into a new market.
Yeah, and so I guess obviously you're kind of saying that you're focused on the restaurant industry, but it seems like this could have implications in other verticals. I guess, are you looking at potentially expanding this to other industries in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I love just Amazon started out as a bookstore, right?
Right.
And that's kind of that's exactly my mentality as well. It's, we're starting out with restaurants because it's a lower barrier to entry.
Mhm.
It's fairly easy to get in contact with a restaurant owner and talk to him and say, hey, like, check out this product. Um, but once we've proofed this out and once we've taken over this niche, we want to be able to expand into bigger industries, where we're talking healthcare. I think that's huge right now, where
Mhm.
even Mark Cuban just started a new healthcare company that is making healthcare prices extremely low, right?
Mhm.
Just the cost of drugs and all that. But there's a reason for that, because pricing within the healthcare industry is not transparent. So healthcare is a big one. Construction is another one as well. So those two industries are some of the ones that are on our radar as well.
Yeah, essentially any industry kind of that has, somewhat murky pricing could kind of be a potential industry that y'all could move into.
Exactly. And that's the goal, to be able to kind of keep going into these different industries, take over and expand into a new one.
Yeah, and since we're kind of running low on time here, I'm always curious, besides obviously making money is pretty important to keeping things going, and growing is also, but I'm always kind of curious, as a founder, like what is kind of the goal, impact that you hope to have through the work that you're doing with Optab?
Yeah. It's bring power to the buyers, right? I mean, obviously right now, like in the restaurant sense, I love restaurants. I love different restaurants across Dallas, and it it sucked to hear throughout the pandemic that some of these restaurants were having to close down.
Tacos Mariachi is apparently gone forever, and it was a sad day.
See that? Yeah, that's a sad day, and I want to be able to help them out, and even if it's through this way, right? I want to be able to help them out in the sense of, let's make sure that you guys are getting the best price possible, and let's partner with you guys and make sure that, one, you guys are able to make better deals and able to cut costs so that you guys can increase your revenue.
Yeah, and I guess keeping it on you for a second, I'll keep you on the spot. One of the other conversations that's going on right now, besides the pandemic, is about diversity, equity, inclusion. So, I was wondering, as a founder of color, has that impacted you at all? Have you kind of noticed any like disadvantages or advantages because of that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I wouldn't say that I have experienced, like, pre-pandemic, what that was like, but post-pandemic, I think
Right.
I think there's definitely been a lot of just effort on the part of different VCs, angel investors, to want to be able to invest in founders of color. And so in that sense, I think the timing for Optab raising funding is great in that sense. And I've definitely noticed a lot of just minority communities coming together to be able to provide resources for other founders of color as well, to just, it's kind of cool to see communities come together and help each other succeed.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious, because you go to pitch to a VC, and I always hear the stories of tens to hundreds of rejections before you get it. I guess, like, with things being remote, do you feel that that's kind of more of an advantage, kind of going in as a founder and pitching your ideas?
I think so. And there are a lot of different avenues. I mean, it's so funny. I don't know if you've heard of this app called Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Uh, but Clubhouse I really do think it's changing the game in terms of venture, right? For me personally, I've been able to meet so many different investors out in Silicon Valley without having stepped foot in Silicon Valley, and not really knowing anyone out there, right, originally. But you just go into these different rooms on Clubhouse where these investors are wanting to hear different pitches, and you're able to follow up with them and schedule Zoom meetings with them, and being able to build a relationship with them and seeing if that might be a fit. And because it's all virtual, and you're able to do that a little bit more efficiently than if you actually had to fly out there and meet up in person.
Yeah, I guess so. You kind of see the remote kind of model being something that continues, after the pandemic. I hate using the phrase post-pandemic, but after the pandemic, I guess, do you see that kind of being the way that, especially like in the VC community and with startups, like, I guess, do you see the remote model being kind of a permanent fixture?
I believe it's going to be more of a hybrid model. And a friend of mine is actually starting a startup it's like Airbnb for office space. And I've kind of gotten this theory from him, is because I think we've all experienced just the remote work pros and cons, right? Like, pros is it's great. You could be working and doing laundry at the same time, right? And that doesn't really hurt your employer. You don't have to commute to work, to the office every day. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of coworkers as well who have kids, and I even had a coworker who had to hire their nanny to come in to take care of the kids while they were at home, right? Like, there is a balance there, and I do believe that eventually we'll move back to a model where people do go back in the office, but just not as frequently as they did in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually amazed that we have made it through this whole thing without my dogs barking. But
Exactly. That's a prime example, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, it pretty much happens like as soon as I start an interview, they're gonna just like immediately start barking.
They
The
just
mail.
start barking.
And I guess like kind of going off the remote thing for you guys, you were saying that, you know, you're here and your co-founders in Nashville. I guess like after things kind of calm down, I guess like what are the plans? Is it to kind of focus in both those cities? Do you kind of plan on combining and kind of focusing your efforts in one place? I guess like what are the plans for that?
Yeah. So the focus right now we're in our beta phase where we've onboarded a few users here in Dallas. And they're just select users that we've partnered with, and they want to give us feedback on the platform. So every time we make a change to it, they tell us, hey, we like this because of XYZ reason, or we didn't like this because of XYZ reason. So we want to focus on the Dallas community at this point. But once we've proofed out the beta and seeing what works, what doesn't work, we want to go and raise funding and be able to tell our investors, hey, here's what we've done so far. Here's what we tested. This model works, and we've proofed it out. So if you guys give us some money, we'll be able to hire a full-time team to bring this out incredibly fast to other cities as well.
Yeah, and I'm looking at our Q&A here, and I guess actually I already asked that question, how your company makes money. So yeah, it looks like actually that was one of our only questions here, but I do have a few other questions just to throw out because I've just kind of been asking this informally of people when I hop on interviews. So like we're both talking to each other from our homes here. So what new skill, hobby, thing have you learned? Like, how have you been kind of keeping yourself busy? Going through books? I've learned how to pickle, which I think I'm pretty good at this point. But I guess like, what has been your pandemic hobby that you've picked up here?
How to pickle? I don't think I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, like taking like a cucumber, spices, making brine.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Kind of similar
it's a
to.
weird one, but
I mean, I guess in a kind of similar to that, I have learned how to play pickleball.
I was reading something about that today. So what is pickleball, please? Like, I don't know actually.
Oh, it is probably the best sport ever, just hands down.
So it involves a racket. That's about all I know.
It's tennis meets ping pong, and so it's on a smaller size tennis court, but it's easy to pick up, just like pickleball. I mean, it's just like ping pong, right? Like anyone can kind of play ping pong, whereas tennis, it's kind of hard to get good at. It's just that happy medium of you can play for a couple of minutes and you can pick it up pretty quick and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm looking at the time. We're out of time here. So I guess on that note, we'll close it out. Thank you so much for joining us today here, James. And everybody tuning in, thank you guys for tuning in to our latest installment of Bytes with the Beat. We'll be running other events, and we've been running Bytes across of our virtual network. So I encourage you guys to check them out, and be sure to check out NTX Inno to learn more about our upcoming events and sign up for the Beat. So everyone, again, thank you, and y'all have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.